Before 1947, India looked like this, a single country under British rule. But then came the partition. Overnight, the map was redrawn, millions were displaced and entire cities were lost. In the chaos, India faced a challenge and an opportunity to imagine new cities for a new nation. The vision was of a bold and modern India, and so we created some of the biggest urban experiments known to this world. This year in 2025 we celebrate 78 years of independence. So let's take a look back at some of the cities that India created after independence. The first city on our list is the city beautiful Chandigarh. Chandigarh was the biggest and the most ambitious experiment of India at the time. When Punjab lost its capital Lahore to Pakistan, a new capital was urgently needed. The result was this city, created in 1952 and designed by the French architect Le Corbusier. The city is laid out on a grid and divided into sectors, each measuring 800 by 1200 meter. And this dimension wasn't random. These dimensions were chosen because they could be comfortably walked by pedestrians. Vehicular traffic ran mainly on the grid roads outside the sector, with limited entry points, making the interiors more pedestrian friendly. Each sector was in fact a self-sufficient unit with its own market, schools, health center, places of worship and a central green area. In many ways, each sector functioned like a mini city within a larger city. One of the most interesting things about this city is Le Corbusier imagined the whole city to be a human body. Sector 1, the capital complex with the assembly, secretariat and high court, was the head. Sector 17, the commercial center, was the heart. The roads of this city became the circulatory system, and finally the lungs of the city was the leisure valley, a continuous green belt running through the entire city divided into themed parks. Now there are so many interesting details about Chandigarh, from like massive concrete structures to how some of the buildings responded to the sun, to a park that was a secret for almost 20 years. Chandigarh to this day remains India's most iconic planned city. But mind you, this city wasn't and isn't perfect. There were loads of problems back in its inception, and there are loads of problems today. But should I make a detailed video about this? Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a complete video about its history and its evolution. But for now, let's move on to the next city on our list, Bhuvaneshwar. After independence, when Odisha needed a new capital, the task of planning it went to a German architect, Otto H. Königsberger. Now Bhuvaneshwar was already an old temple town, so the new city expansion was built next to it. The architect designed the city in a linear pattern, with government buildings along a central spine and residential neighborhoods branching off as self-contained units. Like Chandigarh, this city was also based on the idea of the neighborhood unit, with all amenities like schools, shops, clinics and parks within walking distance. Housing was arranged in parallel rows to maximize sunlight and ventilation. The plan was originally made for just 40,000 people, with about 5 to 6,000 per neighborhood, though the city has since grown far beyond that. Interestingly, the architect had also set guidelines for government buildings. So government offices were to be naturally ventilated with deep corridors and shading instead of air conditioning. So these minute details made Bhuvaneshwar not just one of the first modern capital cities, but also one of the first experiments in climate responsive architecture in independent India. Do let me know in the comments if you're from the city. By the way, speaking of experiments, let's move on to our next city, which is Auroville. Now Auroville is a very special city on this list because the creation of this city wasn't based on administrative issues or politics or overcrowding of any sorts. This city was purely created because of philosophy. In 1968, the mother, a spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, envisioned a city where people from all nations could live together in unity. A French architect, Roger André, was invited to design it, and he came up with something fantastic. He proposed a galaxy-shaped plan with zones spiraling out from a central banyan tree and the golden Matri Mandir. Each zone had a specific role: cultural, residential, industrial and international. One of the most interesting things about this city was the land was just community land. There was no private land ownership. Unlike other planned cities, Auroville wasn't just about efficiency or utility. It was designed for ideals, for human unity, for collective living. So the experiment here, the urban design here, wasn't just about streets or housing. It was about finding new ways of organizing society. However, if you see the Google Earth image of the city, it looks very different from its plan. Half a century later, Auroville remains only partially realized, but its design and its ideals continue to inspire architects and urban planners worldwide. In fact, a lot of architects currently live in Auroville, experimenting with and perfecting new and sustainable ways of construction. So Auroville is less a complete city in that sense, it is more an experiment in urban design and community living. Should there be a more detailed video on this city? Let me know in the comments. And now let's move on to our next city, the capital of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. Now, when the states of Maharashtra and Gujarat were formed in 1960, Maharashtra kept Bombay as its capital, but Gujarat decided to build a new one, and this capital was Gandhinagar. Planned by H.K. Mewada and Prakash M. Apte, both of whom had worked under Le Corbusier at Chandigarh, Gandhinagar was to be laid out on a grid of 30 sectors, each measuring about 1 kilometer by 750 meter. Like Chandigarh, each sector was a self-contained unit with schools, shops, parks, offices, and residential areas. But unlike Chandigarh, the architecture of Gandhinagar is not as rooted in the modernism philosophy. So when you come to this city, even though the urban layout is similar, you will see a change in the architecture and the design. One thing I wanted to point out, it's actually funny that a lot of people don't know that Gandhinagar is actually the capital of Gujarat, and a lot of people still think it's Ahmedabad. Now this might be because of population differences or because Ahmedabad is a much more popular city, but just to point out for those of you who do not know, the capital of Gujarat is actually Gandhinagar. Okay, now let's move on to the final city on our list, and that is Navi Mumbai. By the 1970s, Bombay was bursting at the seams. To handle its growth, architects Charles Correa, Shirish Patel and Praveena Mehta proposed a radical solution: build a twin city across the harbour. This new city was to be called Navi Mumbai. Navi Mumbai was designed as a chain of self-sufficient nodes. Each node had housing for all income groups, schools, hospitals, markets and open spaces, so residents wouldn't need to travel far. The plan even proposed shifting government offices and central business districts to Navi Mumbai to relieve the pressure on South Bombay. But unfortunately, these moves never really happened. Now, one of the ways this move would actually have been successful was the link between Mumbai and Navi Mumbai. A huge bridge that crosses over the harbour was to be created so that the two cities could be joined. It was actually proposed back in the 1960s and it opened last January in 2024. So the whole plan of Navi Mumbai to decongest Mumbai and to bring a lot of the work from Mumbai to here never really materialized. But that's not to say that Navi Mumbai did not help. A lot of lower and middle income families found land there and they could actually create a good life for themselves with a lot of organized and open space around them. So there was good urban design. It's just that the initial promises of this city could not be fulfilled. But whether it was completely successful or not, it is till date India's biggest experiment in urban design. And the city was able to actually achieve something special. The idea of creating a twin city or a satellite city to decongest a major city is an idea that architects and urban designers have latched on. And Navi Mumbai is their biggest learning for that. So essentially this city did help, but maybe in a lot more ways than it originally anticipated. But anyway, those were some of the cities that were designed in India after 1947. Each of them wasn't just about buildings and roads. They were dreams. They were experiments of what a free and independent India could be and could do. Now, given that some dreams succeeded and some fell short, but till today, all of them are living urban experiments. As our cities continue to grow and change, so will all of these visions actually evolve. So yeah, that was a quick video on 5 cities that India built after independence. Of course, there are many more. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below. Which of these cities' designs fascinated you the most, and which other city should I have covered in this video? Let me know. If you would like to help in the creation of more such videos, please use the super thanks feature. It'll help contribute to this cause. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Blessed Arc to explore architecture from India and around the world.